Welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. Let's get started with our hosts, Linda McKissack and Dana Gentry.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. I'm Linda McKissack.
And I'm Dana Gentry.
Hey, Dana, I'm super excited. To me, you have magical powers that you got Dr. Dave Martin on for us.
I have been so excited to have Dave. So Dr. Dave Martin is our guest today. He wrote the book. Well, he's written several books. In fact, he just said, which book are we talking about? Because he's written so many, so we'll have to touch on some of those too. But I met Dave through John Maxwell, all of our dear friend. And Dave, truthfully, I know I've been like texting you like crazy over this book. I mean, I have given this book to so many people. I probably have given out like over 40 copies now since I've read it. And I'm ordering more like every single day. And you know, sometimes there's books that just hit you. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's time or, you know, what, because this isn't a new book for Dave, but this was just one of those books. So anyway, thanks for being on, Dave. Welcome.
Well, I am honored to be on it. So excited. I love what you guys are doing and sharing with people, giving them hope and helping them learn and grow. And that's what, you know, this book you talked about, it's actually the very first book I ever wrote.
Oh,
but
really?
Still to this day, when the royalty checks come in, it's my number one selling book still after all these years. So,
wow.
So it's exciting. And I'm glad that it's encouraged you guys.
It has been so good. I mean, I really, you know, I was actually trying to think back and really, I think, and we've talked about it a ton, Linda, but Chase the Lion by Mark Batterson was like, probably, honestly, Dave, like your book, The Force of Favor, next to that has been one of the, like that book, I have taught on it. I have given, hundreds of copies, like I don't even know. And I'm like, okay, Force of Favor is my new Chase the Lion.
Well, hey, keep giving it out. Keep telling people about it. I love it. I just, you know, any way we can add value to people and encourage people and help them live their, you know, their best life and learn and grow. It's one of the, it's one of your bold laws, right? Through Keller Williams is that growing and learning and developing ourselves. So I love it.
Yep.
So Dave, we like to start with, is it okay if I call you Dave?
Sure.
Okay. We like to start with you were born and then what happened. You can do Cliff Note version and take us up to where the inspiration came for the book and up to the book, if you would. But you were born, then what happened?
Yeah, I was born and grew up. My dad's actually a minister, so I grew up in church, and I always had this thing where I'd end up in situations or in places, and it's like, how did this happen? You know, and people are like, you're so lucky. Just everything you do just turns out good. I had no idea what that was. I just thought, hey, it's good luck, right? And I knew that you know, God was always involved growing up in church, but it wasn't until many years later that I really got an understanding of God's favor and how God, you know, we knew, you know, the scripture, God will shine his face upon you, but not really understanding his favor. But as I begin to see throughout the Bible that this was God shining his face. There's no such thing as luck, right? I mean, we work hard and God rewards that. But then there's moments where he just shines his face and gives opportunities. And then I begin to trace my life back and go, you know, how did you get here? How did this happen? And it's like no way to explain it except God's grace, right? God's favor. He shined on it. And that's how I ended up there. And so I began to study that, begin to look at it and begin to recognize it more. You know, whatever you recognize, you become thankful for. Whatever you're thankful for increases in your life. And I began to learn that these little things, I could just begin to thank God for them. I mean, you think, well, I got the front parking spot at the mall. Well, no big deal. I get good luck today, you know. But I'm like, thank you, Lord, for favor, you know. And begin to recognize just the little things that happen every day. I had a person in front of me has a cart full of stuff at the grocery store, and I got a gallon of milk. And they're like, oh, you got one thing. You can go in front of me.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lord, for favor. You know, and as I begin to see it in the little things, and now I begin to expect it every day. I'm just noticing, seeing it. And as I celebrate it, I'm beginning to see God do it more and more in the bigger things. And, you know, when you're in things like real estate or sales, I mean, you need God's favor leading you, guiding you at the right moment, at the right time. It doesn't take a lot of people liking you. It just takes the right people liking you.
Yeah.
and just the right person at the right moment, and everything changes. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of how I've lived my life for the past, well, all my life, all 29 years or so of it. No, I'm kidding. Yeah. I used to tell people, you tell me I'm 29. They're like, 29? You look horrible for 29. So I've decided now I started going way high. So I'm like, I'm 74. They're like, you look amazing for 74. Yeah. So,
You should say it's God's favor.
Yeah, favor. It's better than what oil of Olay or whatever it is.
Dave, will you just quickly tell the story about how you met John? Because I just think it's such a great story, and just how you became friends with John.
Yeah, talk about favor again. It's crazy. I had an opportunity to meet him a couple of times. We'd spoke at a leadership conference together. We'd spoke at a conference in Australia together. We'd met past each other in the green room and said hello, but nothing ever, beyond that. And in his book, Leadership.
Yeah.
In his book, Leadership, about the fifth page in, this book came out and people were texting me about the fifth page in, there was a big quote from a book I wrote called 12 Traits of the Greats. And from John Maxwell, out of that book. He quoted me out of that book. And we were just getting ready to release actually a new version of that book, a 10-year anniversary edition of that book. And so I said, man, we should see if we could get John Maxwell to write an endorsement for the book, since he just quoted it. Maybe he'd do something. And so
had you sent him the book, or did he had you sent him the book, or he just read the book and quoted it?
Yeah, I guess he had just got a hold of the book somehow.
Wow.
And he quoted it. So I'm like, let's see how we can get a hold of him. So I'm reaching out to a couple people I know that could maybe get me connected with them, and nothing's really happening with it. And we're like, man, we got to get this. This would be awesome. And the publisher's like, oh man, we'll put it right on the cover and it'd just be great. But nothing happened. So I'm in Denver, Colorado, at the Gaylord Hotel there at the National Speakers Association. I was speaking at NSA, and I'd got there to the hotel. My assistant had ran into the concierge lounge, right, to grab something. I said, I'll be in there in a minute. I was talking to another guy, and when I walk in the lounge, she's talking to John Maxwell. And I'm like, what are you doing here? And he's
God's
like,
favor.
Yeah, I'm like, he wasn't on the list to be speaking at the conference. And he's like, well, I'm here for the NSA. I said, well, so am I. He said, yeah, they're giving me an award. My friend Nito Kubain. I'm like, oh, Nito's one of my mentors. He's a great friend of mine. And he said, I said, well, I wanted to talk to you. I wrote this book and you quoted it and blah, blah, blah. And he goes, well, text my assistant, Linda. Or send an email to my assistant Linda. We'll see what happens. See if we can make something happen there. So I know what that is. He's brushing me off a little bit. So I said, okay. I said, well, maybe we can have lunch or breakfast or something. He goes, yeah, I don't really eat breakfast. Okay. Maybe lunch. And he goes, yeah, we'll see. And I said, should I reach out to you? He goes, we'll figure it out. And I'm like, okay. And he left. I was like, well, that didn't go too well. That evening at the dinner, they were throwing a dinner. He was sitting with Nito, my friend Nito Kubain, and so I walked over to the table. Nito introduced us, like, yeah, we've met a couple times. So I said, yeah, we saw each other, and they spoke at that dinner. And after the dinner, I walked by, and he's like, Dave, come here. He said, here's my cell number. Call me. Let's have lunch tomorrow at 1:00. I'm like, okay, awesome. So we go to lunch, and he's like, I got an hour. That hour turned into about 2.5 hours. He's like, you've got to meet my CEO, Mark Cole. When can you meet him? Can you come to Florida? I said, well, I can't come this week. I'm leaving here and I'm going to Birmingham. He's like, go Birmingham? What are you going to Birmingham for? I said, well, there's a conference. Chris Hodges is, he goes, I'm going to be at that conference. He's like, and Mark will be with me. Let's meet there. I said, okay, sounds great. So I get there on Monday. He's coming on Tuesday. Monday, Chris says, hey, Dave, I'm going on this hunting trip with John. You should come with us. There's one spot left.
Wow.
I'm like, okay. So I've not been able to connect with him. I'm trying. On Sunday, we connect. Monday, I'm invited to a hunting trip. Tuesday, I meet Mark and with John. He goes, oh, we're going to have a great time. We'll spend plenty of time together on the hunting trip. 2 weeks later, we go on the hunting trip. Mark hurts his knee, can't go. Chris gets sick, can't go. And so it ends up, I get all this time with just John. There's a few other guys on the trip. Well, at the end, he's like, we're going to fly. I'm going to fly you guys. You guys are going to go back to Atlanta. I've got to go to Baltimore to speak. I said, I'm going to Atlanta and then flying to Baltimore. I'm speaking in Baltimore tomorrow. He's like, you are? I said, I am. He's like, well, then just come with me on my plane. They can all go on the other plane. So now we got 5 hours together on the plane.
So cool.
We spend all that time together. Then literally 2 weeks later, I see Mark post something on Instagram about a flight being bumpy coming into Minnesota. I text him. I said, I'm going to Minnesota today. They said, where are you staying? I said, I'm staying at the JW Marriott. They go, we're staying at the JW Marriott.
He's like, okay, at this point, are you stalking me, Dave?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on?
So it was just crazy with all these years. And then in like a 6-month period or a 6-week period of time, we're together all these times. Yeah. And from there, it just began to flourish, the friendship and the relationship. And it's just been phenomenal. And I could tell you a million stories like that. Throughout my life of people and how this happened and this happened. How did you get here? Favor. Yeah. It was just crazy. So that was a long way to tell that story. But
no, I wanted you to tell that story because one, I love it and I think it's so great. And we talk about John a lot on the podcast. We've had John, everybody, a lot of our listeners know and love John, but also, that to me, when you look back, I mean, and now that I've read your book, I'm starting to be so much more aware of favor, where like what you said, and Lynn and I've talked about this, where we've had people in our lives say, well, everything you touch turns to gold, or, you just saw, and really it's never hit me in the way of favor until I read your book. And so one of the things, I just had a couple questions, and Linda, if you have any too, one of my favorite things you talked about in the book. You said, as Christians, we should be the best businessmen and women. We should be the best teachers, the best musicians, cooks, soldiers, the best of everything. They should wear the cleanest and most appropriate clothes. They should do the kind of work that requires a follow-up effort. They should also exhibit the best attitude while they do these things. And I wanted you to talk a little bit about that, because Linda and I have talked a lot on our podcast and in, personal real life too, how it's hard to find great talent now. I mean, it seems like sometimes people just don't want to work. But when I read that, I thought it really gave me a little bit of conviction of that's so true. And also, Linda, how we've talked about people saying like, why do you still, do everything you do when you don't have to? And why do you still? And I'm like, because that's what we're called to do. I mean, if you're a Christian, that's what you're supposed to do. So Dave, will you talk just a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, success is simple, right? But it's not easy.
Yeah.
And that's probably from the chapter there. Well, I know that's one of those bold laws you guys talk about, but really that probably goes to the chapter on excellence. I talk
it is
in the
excellence.
book,
yeah.
I talk about the 7 ways to increase your favor. And one is to be a person of excellence. And excellence is doing the best you can with what you've got. Right.
Yeah.
And it's going the extra mile. There's a lot of traffic on the first mile, not many people on the second mile. Not many people are willing to go beyond what they need to do or have to do. But that's where real success comes. That's where real achievement comes, and greatness comes, is when you're willing to go beyond just what is required of you. Yep. And so I've learned to live a lifestyle of excellence, and excellence makes you stand out, right? Mm-hmm. That's the difference between the Ritz-Carlton and the Holiday Inn, right? Yeah. It's an excellence factor. And so I've tried to live my life that way in everything I do. Am I doing my very best from the smallest things in life? If I'm at the grocery store and I decide that I don't want these potato chips, and I'm over in the milk section, we've all seen some potato chips laying in the milk section, right? Because someone decided I don't want these, and they just put them there instead of going all the way back to aisle 5 where you got the potato chips, going back to the place where they went and put them back on the shelf. That's excellence. But it begins in those little things. I'm not going to see it happen in my business or in my client relations and all that kind of stuff until it happens in my day-to-day life. We don't leave the cart just out in the middle of the parking lot. You take it back to the place where it says put carts here, back up to the building. Yeah. The toilet paper, if you run out of toilet paper, put a new roll on. Come on, go all the way, right? And make sure it comes off from the top, right? Not from under.
Yes.
That's just part of excellence. And so in everything I do, I want to do my best. One, because well, I represent God in everything I do. And God, how excellent is our God, right?
Mhm.
And so if I'm representing him in everything that I do, I want to be a person of excellence. I want someone to say, there's just something different. That guy just, he goes the extra mile. And
Yep.
so I think that also causes you to stand out with your employees or employers, your clients, that kind of thing, as you're solving problems for people, which is, all we're doing in life to really, to build the life, to build success, is we're just solving problems for people,
Well, funny you talk about that, Linda. I was going to tell you on the chapter of problem solving, like when you talk about one of the best ways to get favor is to solve people's problems. And you give so many great examples of that. And Linda, at the beginning of that chapter, I said Linda's superpower because that Linda is a great problem solver. And I thought Linda in here too. I can't remember. Oh, here it is. Yeah. On page 103. You'll have to go back and find it. But I put on here too, really a lot of favor started for you, Linda, when you solved Gary's problem of nobody had done profit share the way no one had really taken profit share to the level that Gary had that vision of. And like, I totally heard God say this when I was reading this book, but you solved the problem of that for Gary. And then like more favor started to come after that. And there's so many times when we're solving people's problems, and Linda, to go back to the previous podcast we just recorded about not wanting to make another big commitment. A lot of that is just like going and solving a problem for somebody, and then the favor follows, right, Dave?
Yeah. I mean, money's not a mystery to me. Money is just a reward for solving problems, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And everything was created to solve a problem. This microphone solves a problem. If it quits working, now it becomes a problem. So you're either solving problems or you are a problem. One or the other. And so what do we do? Like you said, Linda and Jim, they solved this problem for Gary. And now, they've done well. A lot of people have done well because a problem was solved. And so I'm always looking for, and I can look back, like talking about John, we'll go back since you talk about him. I think now I solve a problem for him. He told someone the other day, he's like, Dave is the funniest person I know. He goes, I don't have to go to a bar. I don't have to get drunk. I just have to call Dave. I just have to look at some memes he sends me, and I'm great. And so I think sometimes he's like, I just need a little dose of Dave. I'm gonna come pick you up, and we need some time. And so it's just, I solve a problem. I bring joy, right?
Yeah.
And whatever you find, whatever problem you can, and that puts you before the king. That puts you before leaders. That puts you before others. And so I'm always looking for, how can I solve a problem for somebody?
Yeah. Okay, I have three real quick questions that I got to have answered because I've never had anybody smart enough on here to ask these questions. Okay, so number one, what is your doctorate in? Is it theology or what is it?
Yes,
Okay,
theology.
Okay, good. That's even better. Okay, so so here's the first question. Well,
wait, Linda, we forgot to tell Dave, when we have guests on, we ask the selfish questions. Like, we're like, we need help. So we ask the questions that we want to know.
Well, and we hope that somebody else out there has it, and usually they do. Okay, so this is something that, first thing I'm going to ask before I forget is, do you think as you work to do excellent work and you bring value to the world and you solve problems, do you think favor increases? So that's one question, because we are doing biblically what God has commanded us to do. So that'd be one thing. And then second, I've always had this knowing, and I don't know if it's just faith. I don't know how to explain it, but I've had it several times. Like when I was running on the beach years and years and years ago in San Diego, I just thought, man, one of these days I want a beautiful place on the water. Now, I came from nothing. So there's nothing in my skill level that would say, you know what, girl, you're going to get that. You're going to make that happen. But there's been times in my life when I just had this knowing that it was going to happen. And I know a lot of people call things manifesting. Is manifesting really good, just God's favor? What are your thoughts on that? And I'm sure you've heard it and stuff like that too.
Good question.
Yeah. What was the first question again?
Do you think as you work to be excellent and you do the commands of what God has commanded us to do, you think favor increases, or is there no arithmetic method to that?
Yeah, well, there's a scripture in Luke chapter 2 that says Jesus increased in favor with God and man. So I think God is the source of favor. Man is the instrument by which favor comes. But Jesus increased in favor with God and with man. So I figure if Jesus needed to increase favor, we can increase our favor. And
Okay.
so that's what this whole book, I looked at ways that I could increase my favor. So I think excellence is a way to increase your favor. I think obedience, obeying principles of God's words, is a way to increase your favor, and excellence is a way to increase your favor. Manifesting, that's a word throughout the Bible. But I think, the Bible said, as a person thinks in their heart, so are they, right?
Yep.
Talks a lot about our mindset, our thinking, and where we put our faith and where we believe. And so, I think we attract those things, right? Whatever the law, we can talk about the law of attraction, but throughout the Bible, it talks about being able to use our faith. Faith is a currency. And you're never going to have anything in your life that you don't desire. I love Harley Davidsons. If I didn't like Harley Davidsons, if I didn't desire Harley Davidson, I wouldn't have any. But it's something that was, God said he gives you the desires of your heart, right?
Yeah.
I think that can kind of go either way. Like the things that you desire to do, the people you desire to help, all those, God gave you those. Like we love helping keep girls in school in Uganda. That's a big thing that we do. And so God gave us that desire. He put the desire in my heart, but also I desire to ride my Harley Davidson. So I got a few of them. If I didn't like them, if I didn't respect them, if I didn't want them, I wouldn't have any of them. So I think that you desired a place on the beach. You desired to look at water. I grew up, Linda, a lot the same way. Grew up in a small town in Mississippi. We were poor growing up. We thought you're supposed to be poor because they told us poor people go to heaven.
Yeah.
And we did everything we could to stay broke. My dad used to tell us if the ice cream truck was playing music, that meant they were out.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I grew up as well. But there was something in me. I mean, we serve a big God, and there was something in me that just knew I wanted more. Ephesians 3:20 is one of my favorite verses in the Bible. He'll give us above and beyond anything that we could think or imagine. And so I've got a book, and I know that's you talk a lot about mindset, called Mindset Matters, because it's all in our thinking. It's all in our in our mindset. So
and
change your thinking, you change your world, right?
Yeah, there you go.
What kind of church did your dad have? Because a lot of times we have to go against what we've been preached at, a little bit to believe this way.
Yeah.
I never learned this growing up. I mean, my dad pastored a little small Pentecostal church, kind of in the woods in Mississippi. And I always say we lived so far in the woods, you had to drive toward town to go hunting. But we just always ended up in the boonies for some reason. And I think that's one of the things that got me into wisdom. I'm always studying wisdom. I want to know, right? The difference between where you are and where you want to be is just what you know. And people ask, I'd like to be doing better than I'm doing right now. Most of all, will say, I'd like to be doing better than I'm doing right now. Well, it just means there's something you don't know. If you want tomorrow to be different than today, you've got to learn something today that will make tomorrow different. If you go into tomorrow with the same information you have today, you won't really have it tomorrow. You just have a longer today. So I try to learn something every day. What don't I know? Because we've all heard that. What you don't know, it hurts you, right?
Yep.
And so the Bible even tells us wisdom is the principal thing. Whatever you do, get it. Proverbs said a wise person will increase in learning.
Yep.
And so that's why I read. I have 4,000 books. Why? Too much stuff I don't know. And if that's the difference, I want to know. And so growing up in a small town, and I didn't know a lot of this. I didn't hear this stuff. We just love God, fight the devil, get to heaven one day. And that was about it. And I found there were so many more things that there was a big difference between the person of Jesus and the principles of Jesus. The person of Jesus prepares you for heaven. The principles of Jesus prepare you for earth. And there's ungodly people. I was on tour for several years called Get Motivated with the guys from Shark Tank. Yeah. And one day, Damon John, one of the guys on Shark Tank, and I were talking, and I said, all this stuff we talk about, all this stuff we teach is all in the Bible. He said, it's not in the Bible. I said, it's all there. It's the principles. And he was talking about, when you write down your goals, you dramatically increase the likelihood of accomplishing them if you'll just write them down. I said, of course, that's good. It's in the Bible. Habakkuk 2, write the vision, make it plain, right? So all these principles, you probably straightened up the shoes in your closet before, right? And when you got done, felt like you could conquer the world. You're like, I could do anything today. Why? you created order. Well,
Mhm.
God is a God of order. So when you straightened up your closet, straightened up your desk, you did a
Yeah.
godly thing. That's why you felt so good about it. And that gives you the strength to go do something else. So all this wisdom is there for us to
Yeah.
unwrap and unfold and to make our life, better so that we can live the life that God created us to live.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of a guy named Mike Murdock?
I have. I
You
have.
know, I read one of his books. He's actually from around here. I haven't heard about him or anything in years, but I read one of his books. What was it? I can't remember which one it was, but it was so profound. And I want to go back and reread the book and say, did I just dream that was in the book, or was it actually? But I was having a terrible, terrible time with one of my business partners, and I was struggling with it. I was laying awake at night, my husband and I both, and it was ruining our life. And I'm like, this don't seem right. But I can't remember what was in his book. But he was one of those, I think, that kind of was one of the first people that kind of started talking a little bit about this stuff. Did I have that wrong? I haven't only read the one book by him, but
You don't have the wrong. I actually worked for him for 7 years.
did you?
Wow.
Gosh,
Yeah.
yes. As a matter of fact, I've often thought about. I told Dana that one of the things I really want to work on this year is listening to the Holy Spirit, and I think he
Yeah.
talks a lot about that in his books. And
Yeah.
I've always said every motivational book in the world, I believe, came from principles of the Bible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when people I had a pastor say one time, if you follow Paul, it was about. I think it was about. Oh no, it was what's the guy that has the big place in California? He was one of the first ones that had kind of motivational stuff, but he was a
Robert
pastor.
Schuller.
Robert
Yeah.
Schuller.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was him. But anyway, the pastor made it sound like you either follow Paul or you listen to all this other stuff, and that was a really hard thing. It made it sound like they were two different things. How
Yeah.
I always felt like they were the same thing, but just s- not giving the Bible credit. Really?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you go back and read all the old classics, right? All the Napoleon Hill, James
Yeah.
Allen. I mean, they all are quoting the Bible. The Bible is not nonstop because it's the greatest success book ever written.
Yeah.
Right. The principles had to begin somewhere. And so often we miss out because God created these principles. There's ungodly people using the principles and
Yeah.
achieving ungodly results. And a lot of times Christians struggle with that. Well, I don't want to get into this. I don't want to get into that. But yet God created it for us.
Yeah.
And I hate to see people miss out on making the rest of their life the best of their life because they miss something like that.
Yeah.
Is that why you wrote the book? Because you really saw people not understanding God's favor and how
Yeah.
to use it, and
Yeah, or thinking I just got lucky, or those type of things, but not
Yeah.
realizing that it was God shining His face on us, and there's things throughout His Word, principles. If we follow those principles, that it's like my son. When my son obeys, when my son does the things that I ask him to do, boy, I'm more than willing to pour out blessings on him. Right?
Yeah.
I'm more than willing to help him with what he needs, and so
yeah,
I think
so
it's the
true.
same with us and God. When we follow the principles, we follow the rules, then He's more than happy to
Yeah.
shine His face on us.
You know, Dave, what your book really did for me, and I know we're running out of time. I just have two really quick questions too, but it really convicted me because I've heard those things my whole life from other people that I could have had the opportunity to talk about my faith with, and I didn't. And it really left me. I mean, that's why now I'm like, I read it really fast in like a day and a half, and then I reread it again and made more notes. And then actually, you're going to see, but I just had Tyler do a bunch of content, pictures and videos with your book, because I'm going to start I want to start like a little teaching Bible study or something on it. But it really convicted me that when people say the whole oh, you're just lucky, or oh, everything you touch turns to gold, or oh, it's kind of like when people see the life that you have now, and they want whatever John says, they want what you want, but they don't want to did what you did or do what you do.
Right. Yeah.
They want what you have, but they
reminded-
don't want what you did.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. But this is kind of similar, and it reminded me of that because every time someone has said that to me, I should be using that as an opportunity to say hey, that's favor. I'm highly favored and blessed. And, I'd love to talk to you about that or share. I left our last high capacity leader. Normally I leave those, and I did. I got a lot from it. I think I told Linda this. Normally, I know I told Adam this. Normally I leave those feeling so pumped up and ready to conquer the world. And this time I left and I felt man, I'm not bringing people to the Lord as much as what I should be, or I just have a real opportunity in that area. And your book has really helped me with that. So thank you for that, because that's really opened my eyes to a lot of things.
You probably saw in there that declaration. It's a declaration of favor. Every day I just declare that over my life and declare that God would open up opportunities for me to be salt and light, right? I think you have that on your phone, don't you, Dana?
Yes, I do.
To be salt and light every day. Yeah. And so that's part of, I call that favor when God puts, he caused my, the Orkin guy to be, the pest control guy at my house. The other day I got to pray with him and tell him about Jesus right at the bar, at the island in my kitchen. I'm like, God, today put someone in my path that I can shine your light on, and so in the world today, you don't need light in the brightness. If I have a flashlight in the middle of the day, no one cares. But you look at the world, there's some dark things happening. And when you turn your light on in the dark, everyone wants to be your friend. Right. Yeah. And so that's what we're looking. How can we turn our light on in the things happening around us in people's lives to brighten up the day?
Yeah, love that.
That's awesome. Well, Dave, we need more Christian business leaders and wisdom speakers on our podcast. Who do you know that we should know?
Who do you know that? Oh, I've heard someone ask that question before.
We learn from our friend John.
We do learn.
Yeah.
And I have one more selfish question I have to ask before you go.
We need 2 episodes with Dr. Dave.
Did I freeze?
No, I got you.
Go ahead, Dave. Okay. I was going to say, do you, if you want to think on the who do we know?
Yeah. All right. I will.
We'd really like it if it's Mark Batterson. We've been trying like heck to get him.
Okay.
We've been trying to get Mark Batterson for like 3 years. Good grief. We have. Okay, here's my selfish question really fast, because I really did not know the answer to this, y'all. And I mean, I'm like, how do I not know this? In the book, when in the chapter, you talk about sowing seeds, and I love that chapter. It's so good. But my selfish question is, you talked in here about the difference between like tithing and giving, and then your offering, and then offering is a gift of one's own resources or property. And in the Bible, I've read so many times about how people bring their offerings to the Lord, and but like, what's a real life example today of how we could bring an offering? Other than because that's different than tithing, right? I didn't understand that, Dave.
Right. I kind of a simple way I kind of explain it to people is tithing. The Bible talks about we bring our tithe and offering, that they're 2 separate things. And so the tithe that says we'll open up the windows of heaven. Well, growing up, I had a window that wouldn't stay open. We had to put a book in it or a stick or something to keep the window open. And so I think tithing is it's bringing back to God. God asked for us to bring 10%, right? Tithe. Right. It's not a Bible word. It's a math word. It just means 10. And so I bring 10% back to God. That's not mine. That's his. And so that kind of puts the stick in the window. Being a tither keeps the windows of heaven, but my offering determines what comes out the window. I think my real blessings come from when I give out of what I have. So I give 10%. Well, to him, I have 90% left is what you'd say. I still say I have 100% left of what was mine, because the other was never mine anyway. But then I take a portion of that. Now, when I take a portion of that, now I've done something. Before I just gave God back what was his. That's not, if I borrowed your car this weekend and at the end of the weekend gave you your keys back, you wouldn't be thrilled about that. You'd say thanks. Right. If I said, oh, Dana, you're going to love this. Look what I got for you. And I hand you your keys. You're like, it's my car. You just borrowed it.
It's already mine.
Right. But if I said, hey, Dana, thanks for letting me borrow it. By the way, I noticed you needed some new tires, so I put new tires on it for you. And I went ahead and had them change the oil. Here's your keys. Now you're like, whoa, wait. You didn't have to do that.
Right.
I had to bring it back or else you're going to call the police. But I didn't have to put oil. I didn't have to give it an oil change. I didn't have to get it washed. I didn't have to get new tires. Now I did something out of what I had to be a blessing. And I think that's where the seed comes from, is taking something out of our part and going, I'm going to give this to help build a home for girls that have been through human trafficking, or I'm going to help our church build a new building or whatever it may be.
Yep. So yes. So like above and beyond our normal 10% would be the offerings. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And I see if this is wrong or not. It could be like offering what you've been stewarded with, whether it's a nice home that your church can use, whether it's your services, whatever. It can be other things too, right?
Right. Like if you finally got that place on the beach and you wanted me to go and stay there for a week, that would be an offering, and that would be a blessing. But yeah, anything we do that blesses someone else, anything we do that helps someone else is a seed, right?
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Perfect explanation. Thank you.
On forever. I hate
Dave, we're going to have you back.
Well, I'd be glad to.
How many books do you have? We'll have you back that many times.
Yeah.
Dave, your the one that we just got, it's coming up on my list to read. I have like my stack, but it's the 12 traits of the great, right?
That's the one that John said. If you can only read one book this year, you have it in your hands. John Maxwell,
and I've got that on my nightstand, so that's coming up soon. So we'll have to have you back to talk about that.
We got one on habits.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I love habit ones.
I was going to say Linda loves habits.
Google your name and find them all.
I was talking to James Clear the other day, and he wrote Atomic Habits.
Yes.
And so my book, Make That Break That, came out about the same time as his. And he told me now has sold 10 million copies of Atomic Habits. And I said, James, that's amazing. Between the two of us, we have now sold over 10 million copies of books about habits. So, but yeah, there's a whole bunch in there, and I'll be glad to talk about any of them.
And we'll link Favor for sure in the notes in there, and then we would just encourage everybody to Google all of your books and which one God puts on your heart to read first. Do that first. And you do know someone, James Clear. So thank you very much.
Okay. James Clear, and I know Mark Batterson too. So
there we go. Oh my gosh, yes.
We'll see what we can
You're
do.
A man with connection, Favor.
I love it.
I love talking about networking. That's one of the most powerful things.
It is.
It is.
I'm where I am today because of who I know. That relational equity.
I appreciate, Linda and I both appreciate you being on so much. And truly, you're one of my favorite people I've gotten to know this year. And I am looking so forward to spending more time with you. And thanks for all that you're doing for good. And I just love following along. Now I'm invested in watching your son play football. So I'm like another layer of investment that I am into the Dave Martin family. But just appreciate you so much. Thank you for this book.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you guys for having me. It was an honor, and hope I added value.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
All right.
Remember, if you have not hit the subscribe button, please go ahead and hit that button right now. And if you would go ahead and leave us a review, and also pass this podcast along to anyone that you think that would enjoy these conversations. If you have a guest, a challenge, or an opportunity you'd like to discuss on the podcast, be sure and reach out to us at info@Everything Life in Real Estate. Dana, I guess I'll see you next week. And Dr. Dave, thank you so much.
Thank
you. See ya.
Be sure to subscribe for more business strategies and tactics to inspire you to live an abundant real estate life. Don't forget to rate and review so we can bring you the best content. Find this and other valuable information at everythinglifeandrealestate.com.